Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Alfred Drinking Coffee with Friends. Today, I am joined with the Vancouver Coffee Snob, or Tom, as I like to call him. Welcome to the podcast, Tom. Do you want to fill us in on kind of who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. Super stoked to be here. Obviously, big fan of you, mate. Um,
I'm pretty
so,
sure I'm the fan of you, but whatever, it's fine.
yeah, is this just going to be like an hour of us telling each other how great we are? I'm
Yeah,
up for
and
it
then
if you
like
are.
a half an hour of how terrible we are.
Well,
How's
yeah,
that?
yeah. I mean, that's pretty easy for me. So I'm Tom. I have a website called Vancouver Coffee Snob. So I'm that opinionated moron that writes all that stuff about people online. I also have a technology company called Sipley. It's a coffee app, and it helps drive business into coffee shops. So I got my fingers in a few different pies when it comes to coffee in Vancouver.
Yeah. So I'll just mention this because when I first started off as Alfred drinking coffee, I was a nothing. I was I was a nothing person, and you were actually one of the first people to reach out to me to be like, "Hey, I think what you're doing is really cool. We need to talk." And I'll be honest, when you reached out, I'm like, "Oh my God. Like this is the coolest thing. Why does he want to write about me? Why does he want to know about me?" And and I think ever since then, that was like maybe 3, 4 years ago.
Yeah,
And ever since then, we started like meeting up every once in a while at different events or whatever. And then it turned into a friendship
yeah.
where we literally just meet up and chat about life and coffee and all that. And um, it was the coolest way to start a friendship, basically.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but it's been interesting because for me, a lot of people will be like, "Hey, do you have like competition in the coffee industry or whatever?" And I'm just like, "No, I don't really see it. It's not competition, but if we're talking about people that are doing similar things, it's me and Tom. Like
Yeah,
that was literally it, right?" And the coolest thing is that we've never really been in competition. Like it's always been me and you trying to like build each other up and building the community up. And we do different things here and there, but in the coffee game, like it's I don't want to say we're like the hype men of coffee in Vancouver, but like in Vancouver, like we're both known as the coffee guys, right? So
yeah,
it's pretty cool that we can actually collaborate and like we can work on things together, and that's something that
definitely.
I think is awesome as a whole. So I'm glad that you're here, first of all.
To be here, and I should just comment on, yeah, like first off, your standards must have been really really low to get so excited by someone like me reaching out and talking to you. I gotta say though, the to comment on one thing that you were saying, which was, propping each other up and so on. So I started like, talking to you about how you were writing and what you were doing and what kind of content and so on. And I quickly realized that you were better at it than me. So I've spent the last 4 years trying to sabotage you behind your back, attacking your website, writing weird things about you on the internet. And, like I'm nice to you in person, but behind your back, I say
uh,
things about you.
okay,
Yeah.
so that's fine. Let's
I'm
let's
seriously
keep that
threatened.
facade up, okay? Because I want to remember Tom as that nice guy trying to build me up.
Yeah.
But if you want to attack me from behind, that's fine. I'll let it go. I will get at you. I will get you.
You can't. COVID's on. No one can get at me right now. I'm indestructible. What are you gonna do? Send me an email? Who knew?
Ooh, what are you gonna do? Just cyber
No.
attack through emails.
Jokes aside, it's been wicked watching you go from someone who was like, I don't know, decided to start an Instagram account and a website and become like a local powerhouse in coffee. And you're doing a wicked job, mate. And like you've been one of the key people that's really helped grow the scene and get word out about coffee shops, and in your case, a lot of individual coffees as well. So it's been wicked getting to know you, mate.
Well, I really appreciate it. That was probably the biggest ego boost I'll ever get, and I will remember it forever. It's probably also all lies, so that's fine.
Oh,
Um,
definitely, definitely.
yeah,
You can't see the keyboard right now, but I'm writing things about you on a forum.
you had a script ready.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's first off let's talk coffee because you and I drink just as much coffee as one another, and you know I'm a like 3 to 4 kind of guy, like coffee a day guy.
Yeah.
Um, what coffee are you drinking right now? Like, what's your favorite? What kind of has stood out in the last few days, few weeks, few months that you've been drinking?
I just finished the House of Funk Colombian that comes in those awesome little cans. I probably should have had a can available right now to show. I've been posting quite a bit about House of Funk at the moment. They're just like, they're rocking my world with the stuff they're doing, and their beers as well. They're incredible. So they gave me a little can of the Colombian, and it is, first off, it was super easy to brew up. Like I screwed one up. I can't remember what I did. I ground too tight or something like that. And it was like a 5-minute brew rather than a 3.5, which is what I usually do. And it came out perfect. So super flexible, really, really tasty coffee. I'm just gutted that I had the can size and not like the big bag size, because the can size didn't have nearly enough for me to be kind of satisfied. And now I got to go back and get more. So yeah, that's been rocking my world recently. For sure.
Okay, that's cool. So for me, I've been drinking, like, first of all, House of Funk, love their coffee. Like ever since I had an Ethiopia and a Guatemala from them,
Yeah.
and those cans are just the coolest idea. It's just absolutely amazing. Their coffee as a whole is just, they came out of nowhere. Like for me, I did not even know about House of Funk until you started talking to me about it, and then I talked to them a little bit, and it blew me out of the water. It was so good. I also know exactly what you mean when like that can is not enough.
Yeah.
For a normal human being, it's enough. But for you and I, we have a real problem and an
Yeah.
addiction. So totally get it. If you had like a kilogram bag, that might not even be enough. So it's
Well, the good thing is I get given so much coffee that I have different things to choose from. I'm sure you're the same. You
oh
probably
yeah.
get way more than me.
Yeah.
And it's great to be able to switch back and forward. And I'm never hurting for coffee. Let's put it that way.
It's one of those things where like I'm not gonna say like I always love change or I always love to be consistent in the same thing or whatever, but with coffee, one morning I'll be like, you know what, I want a fruitier coffee. One morning I'm like, you know what, I want a more balanced coffee, like whatever it is. And
Yeah.
when I have that kind of selection, it's a nice way to go.
Yeah.
Like right now for me, I'm drinking Monogram's El Diamante. I'm living off that stuff.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
so good. It's got like apple notes and like some cinnamon notes in there as well.
Yeah.
And you know Monogram well. Like Monogram, they're when they write down that is the note, or they say like you're gonna taste apple, you're tasting apple. There's nothing else that you're gonna taste. That's it, right? And it's just, yeah, their coffee has been on my palate all day for the last like week or so.
Yeah.
Obviously changing it up for when people reach out and want me to review their coffee or whatever, but that coffee's just unreal.
They're one of the most consistently mind-blowing coffee roasters in Canada, in my opinion. They've some of their weird and wonderful stuff, like weird geishas and I don't know, weird process stuff. They've left me speechless a couple of times.
Yeah.
And they definitely know what they're doing. All the way down to they have one of the best espressos. I think I put it as my espresso of the year last year. And it's super chocolatey and really well balanced, big body, just a very, very good example of a solid espresso, and it goes really well with any milk and any Americano style combo that I could possibly throw at it. So they definitely know their stuff for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, for me, like when I did my Alfies for the first time ever.
Yeah, I love that, by the way.
Thanks. Not gonna lie, I got the idea from you with your snobby awards.
Oh, don't worry, I stole it from someone else. So yeah.
We're all thieves. It's fine.
Yeah.
But drinking Monogram throughout the year, I'm just like they're consistently just so good. So
Yeah.
I had to give them Roaster of the Year for the Alfies this year, right? It was just I haven't had a bad roast from there.
Yeah.
I haven't even had it's never been like, again, I gotta caveat this. It's never been a good roast. It's always been exceptional roasts,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I didn't want to pause there at the good roast and then stop because people were like, "Are you saying it's not good? Like, what are you trying to say?"
Just where it like buffers and you're just stuck watching it going,
Never
oh,
a good roast, and then
no.
I just stop. No, they're just so exceptional, and I've never had a bad roast from them. So
Yeah.
I'm happy that like I have some of that still on my bar.
Yeah.
But now, talking about the bar, what is your go-to brew method? Because I know you play around with V60s. I know you play around with espresso machines, and I've seen you do a little bit of latte art. So you know your stuff. You know your way around an espresso machine.
I know what the buttons do.
For a non-barista.
For a non-barista, I do all right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Better than me, so it's fine. So
Still practice.
what is your favorite brew method right now?
So you hit the nail on the head. It's V60 for me. That has been Old Faithful for a really, really long time, and I use that pretty much every single day. I have a few different V60s actually. I've got the ceramic one. I got a couple of plastic ones. I've got this like portable one that has a filter built into it that I don't really rate. Good for camping or something like that. But I use my plastic clear $10 V60 pretty much every single day with my $10 carafe or whatever it cost underneath it, because I kept breaking the expensive ones, so I just bought the cheap shitty ones. And honestly, that's it for me. That's my absolute go-to.
Yeah.
And I have an Encore, a Baratza Encore, which is my that's my kind of bottleneck at the moment. I think that if I could upgrade my grinder, I could get much better flavors out of the coffees. But honestly, for a $180 grinder, that thing is absolutely incredible. But my second to that is my espresso machine, and I've got a Breville dual boiler, so I can steam and I can pull a shot at the same time, which is fantastic. I don't drink many milky drinks anymore, to be completely honest with you. I'd go for an Americano or a straight espresso. But honestly, that thing, I don't know, maybe I use it once a week now. I really don't use it that often.
That's fair. Well, now it's a little bit different too, right? Being in self isolation or quarantine or whatever you want to call it. It's I found that I've started to enjoy more. Like I already enjoyed it, but I started to enjoy more the brew methods that I'm using and taking my time to make like the perfect cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Because I have the time, right? I'm not in a rush to go to a meeting. I'm not in a rush to do anything. Sure, I'm working from home. Like I'm lucky enough to be working remotely, but I have time to enjoy my coffee in the morning. I have time to enjoy the method, right?
Yeah. That's what I like about the V60 is that I get distracted so easily. It's ridiculous. Like I can't do anything. If there's a pause when I'm waiting for a website to load, my instinct is to reach for my phone and start looking at that. It's ridiculous. So there's two things that I can kind of really zen out and focus on. One of them is going out running because I haven't got anything else to do. I'm just running. And the other one is making a pour over. I'm focused on that at that moment. And I'm watching the timer and I'm watching the bed and the water and all that kind of stuff. And it's only 3 minutes, but it's a nice 3 minutes of focus. And then, like you say, you're at home. I've been working at home for 8 out of the last 10 years. So I'm pretty dialed in with that. But what it does is it gives you time to really, you can do 2 or 3 of them without having to worry about taking a break and going to the break room in an office and, looking like a dickhead in front of it. Can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah, do whatever you want.
All right. Looking like a dickhead in the break room, which I used to do with my AeroPress and my hand grinder and get teased.
Yeah.
So at home, you can really focus on it. And I don't drink 4 anymore. I don't drink 4 a day. I drink maybe 1 or 2. But those are very kind of focused and enjoyed experiences.
For sure. Okay, that's awesome. For me, like again, I'm this about me as well as everyone else that's been listening to this podcast, like the 2 people that have listened to this podcast, because I've mentioned it so many times, but the French press is my go-to.
Yep.
And it's always been my go-to. And the main reason is just because it comes out with such a strong coffee, right? You always come out with a strong coffee. this isn't to discredit the pour over, the V60 or the Chemex, or even like Bodum has one as well. That's
Yeah.
unreal that I use from time to time. But the French press just always gives me a consistently strong cup of coffee, and lately I've needed that strong cup of coffee. So
Nice.
I've just loved it, right? And it's a lot more difficult to screw up the coffee
Hmm.
when you use a French press. It's an easy way to start, and I'm all about like introducing people to like the start of caring about coffee and being into the coffee culture. Uh, it's really the easiest way to make a perfect cup of coffee. So it's kind of stuck with me. Plus, the laziness factor is huge too, so that that adds to it. Um,
Have you tried the James Hoffman method for French press?
no, no.
Blew my mind.
Walk me
Absolutely
through
blew
it.
my mind.
Walk me through it.
So it's been a while since I've done it, so I'll probably screw up some details. But maybe you can put like the link in the display. Sorry,
Maybe,
the show or
maybe.
whatever.
I'll probably again be too lazy to do it, but go ahead.
All right, so you can just look up on YouTube. You can look up the James Hoffman French press
Yeah.
method. It's a bit more like cupping than it is like a French press. So if I remember correctly, you do something like 50 grams of coffee, and you put, I want to say 700 grams or maybe 500 grams. No, 50 grams of coffee is way too much. 30 grams of coffee, 500 grams of water, I think is what it is.
Okay. Okay.
So you're making a bit of a bigger cup than
Mhm.
maybe you would with a pour over.
Yeah.
And you pour water over your grinds, and then you essentially you let it sit for ages, and then you stir it a little bit,
Okay.
and then you let it sit. If you can hear some meowing in the background, it's my cat.
Love it.
You can so you let the coffee sit for a bit. You pour it, you stir it a little bit, and then you scrape all of the kind of the gunk off of the top of it.
Okay.
And then rather than pressing it, all you do is you use the metal filter as a filter to pour the coffee out of it. So you essentially bring the filter down to above the water line or the
Yeah.
coffee line,
Yeah.
and then you start to pour the the coffee through the metal filter. And what you get from this is a really interesting way of brewing, because you can actually, once you've cleaned up all the gunk and done your thing, you can actually let it sit there for ages. And he argues for letting it sit there for anywhere up to like 11 to 15 minutes or something insane like that. And what's happening is all the coffee's falling down to the bottom,
Mhm.
and you're, much like cupping, you're letting the kind of coffee sit there without really doing much brewing.
Right.
And then you can pick the perfect time for when you want to drink that coffee. So, if you cup, the hot coffee tastes a lot different than the cold coffee, and that's because it's just been sitting there for a while. And so it's kind of like that, and is way more kind of finicky, but it was actually fantastic to do it and to see how great the cup was. But it was much more like a pour over than it was a big, bold French press.
Okay. Okay. That I'll have to try that. Like
Yeah.
I've never done that method whatsoever, and I'll be honest, 15 minutes to brew coffee is a long time, even for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'll try it out, and yeah, I'll post a link to that because I think that's a really cool way to brew, right?
It's fun to just play around with it. Yeah.
Yeah, and might as well.
I'm going to quickly interlude here. Do you want to meet my cat, because she's going to keep screaming outside of the door unless
Absolutely.
I let her in right now, and I'm
Bring
sure
in the cat.
a few people might want to meet her anyway.
I love it.
Presenting Deborah McCatface's first podcast experience. She doesn't look very happy about it, but this is the little screeching menace that turns up in my Instagram stories quite often. And she has spent the last few days, we call it the everything's okay alarm. She walks around the house just screaming her head off, just letting us know everything's okay.
And
And
then
now
just
that she's
silence.
coming here, what she's going to do is she's going to walk back to the door, and now she's going to meow and want to get out.
Oh,
So,
for sure, for sure.
yeah.
You only get one or the other. It's like a child. You train that child. You're either inside or you're outside. You don't get both.
the great thing about this is that my missus has seen this happening over the last few days, and it's now set us having children back at least 10 years, which is great. because I'm trying to push that back and back and back and back and back until I'm, just old and dead.
Yep. Fair, fair. Do your thing. Although I would want to see little coffee snobs running around. That would be.
I can't afford little coffee
Or
snobs.
not. Never
I
mind.
can't afford myself, let alone little ones. Jeez.
It's fine, man. I like whenever I think of me having a kid, I'm just like, I'm a child already. Like I can't imagine having a child whatsoever. So that's a whole other thing. But okay, back to coffee.
Yes.
Back to coffee. So you've been in the coffee community or coffee culture for a while now, right?
Mm.
What are your biggest takeaways from the coffee community or the coffee culture in Vancouver or other cities that you visited? Like, is it different city to city? Is it pretty similar? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely different city to city. One of the biggest eye openers was Montreal when I went there for a visit, and we must have gone to maybe 20 coffee shops there. And I came back and I described Montreal as their coffee scene is better than our coffee scene,
Mm-hmm.
but their coffee is worse. So they're much darker over there, and I'm much more into the light roast kind of tea-like coffees than maybe big bold dark roasts. Montreal was very dark, but their coffee scene was incredible. The amount of events that were on, the festivals that they have. I saw a $5,000 grinder and pour over setup in a clothing store, just hanging out if you wanted coffee. And
Wow.
you wouldn't really see that here. You'd see a Starbucks next door, or you might see a cool coffee shop, but you'd not see that level of coffee nerdery typically inside non-nerdy coffee shops. So definitely there's a big difference in the coffee scene. I mean, one of my big takeaways though is that no matter where I go and drink coffee, there is this kind of coffee scene mentality that is it attracts the nicest people I've ever met in my whole entire life.
Mm-hmm.
So a good example is like, I'm now working in the coffee scene for my own company, and I'm no longer an IT engineer, which is what I used to be.
Yeah.
But I'm now coffee scene person, and the reason is I wanted to work in the coffee scene because everybody's so bloody lovely. That people prop each other up, they collaborate with each other. If somebody's like missing something from their shop, they'll happily donate it to somebody else. Someone's out of milk or someone's out of beans or something like that.
Yeah.
There's just such a beautiful community around coffee that I wanted part of that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's the same in any city that I've been to and anywhere I've drunk coffee. Just a general air of loveliness from people.
That's awesome, man. Like I won't say like I've gone everywhere, right? On my end, like Montreal, I haven't been to since grade 8, so I definitely wasn't drinking coffee back then. But I need to go back. I've talked to a few people out in Montreal. I have friends out in Montreal and stuff like that, and yeah, everything I've seen is their coffee scene is unreal, right?
Yeah.
It's the scene itself is really cool, but everywhere I've gone. Across Canada at least, and different places around the world, coffee is such a universal language, and I found that no matter where you go, there's going to be someone like there's going to be a barista, unless it's like this massive chain where it's some 15-year-old with his first job doesn't really care about anything. Other than that, you'll have people that really care about the coffee and really care about the connection that they're building with the customer, right?
Yep.
And I love that. Like when I was in Paris, the second time I went to Paris, not to take this outside of Canada, but the second time I went to Paris, I decided to do a full-on coffee tour, and I spent 4 days, honestly, just enjoying the atmosphere, enjoying the scenery, not focusing on going to any specific place or whatever, just walking around and enjoying it. Every coffee shop that I went to, I'd have like a great conversation with the barista. I'd sit there and just enjoy the coffee. They'd come by and be like, "How was it? What do you think?" Whatever. And they're doing this with everyone. It wasn't even a situation of they knew who I was, because no one knows who I am. I'm not that big of a deal. But they constantly were just like, "What do you think? do you like the coffee? And then they talk to me about the roast, the origin, things like that. And I'm just like, this is incredible.
And this was in Paris.
Yeah, this was in Paris, right?
So Paris has a reputation for being quite an unfriendly city,
I
and
know.
I was curious what the coffee scene would be like there. And no diss in France, it's in Paris, but that, you know,
Yeah.
France is awesome. Paris is a beautiful city.
Hmm.
I just I've not been since I was a kid, but I've been told that it can be cold
Yeah.
in certain times, like people cold, not physically
Yeah,
cold.
yeah, yeah.
So
No.
it's great to hear that. And again, is it one of those coffee things, right? You know, like you can put a coffee person in Paris, you can put the most, you know, put them in the most unfriendly place,
Yeah.
and they can still be friendly because it's coffee.
Exactly, and that's something that I like. I've stuck to, and I've really enjoyed in terms of the coffee community and the coffee culture. Again, not just in Vancouver, because we both know that outside of both of us, the coffee community is very kind and very friendly. We're just the jerks in the community. It's
Right.
fine.
Right.
But even across Canada and globally, it's such a friendly, inviting environment that you can't help but enjoy, right? Even if you're new to it, even if you've been in it for 20, 30 years, you're going to have a good experience. You're going to have a good time talking to people that you've never talked to before in your life, right?
Agreed.
You're going to meet some great people that really just love coffee and love to share their love of coffee.
Agreed entirely. Yeah, that's been my experience 100%.
It's it's been a fun. I'll say, like, for myself, it's been a fun 4 years getting into the coffee scene. I know you've been into it a little bit longer than I have.
Yeah.
How long has it been for you?
It's coming up to 5 years that I've
Five
had a
years.
blog. Yeah.
Okay, so we're close. We're
Yeah, oh
relatively
yeah,
close.
yeah. You were nipping at my heels fairly quickly. I almost feel like you're more than 4 years. Like it just seems it seems like no time, and it also seems like a ton of time that I've known you. You know,
Yeah, I know. Like, again, this was one of those friendships that were like meant to be. Like, and actually, a little while ago, I was talking to Alexander Mills, and I was saying how, like, it's very interesting how our worlds combined, and even you and I, our worlds would not have combined if it wasn't for coffee.
correct? Yeah,
Right?
that's right. Yeah,
We work, like, you were in tech, like deep in tech, and I'm an accountant. Like, no one wants to talk to an accountant anyways. So
yeah.
so we wouldn't have like linked up if it wasn't for coffee. So it's
Yeah.
been great over the last little bit to link up and talk, right?
I've made some incredible friends through the coffee scene. You know, there's a ton of people locally. I've kind of gotten myself not official mentors, but there are people that I will call up and go, hey, I got this idea. Let me run it past you. A good example is Ben over at Palette. Like when I was building Sipley, I was sitting down with him and I was chatting to him about ideas I had, and like, you know, I've had, whether he knows it or likes it, he's kind of mentored me through a little bits and pieces. I got friends who are over in Australia in the coffee scene now. So the guys that were Groundswell Coffee, Will and Atty, they were friends with me and my wife. We would go have dinner, and we went over to their apartment, and they cooked us dinner. And you know, all of these connections would never have happened without coffee, without one day deciding, oh, holy crap, this coffee thing isn't just burned crap from Starbucks. There is much better out there. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Do you remember? I'm going to flip the interviewing right
Go
now.
ahead.
Do you remember your first cup of coffee where you sat down and went, holy shit, what is this?
I do. I cannot tell you the name of the coffee because at the time I didn't like. This was when I didn't know anything about coffee, didn't know anything about origins, didn't know anything about like flavor profiles or anything. But the one coffee that I would say shifted my dynamic or shifted my thought process on coffee was at Revolver.
Oh yeah.
I had got like my friends were like, "Oh, we want to go to Revolver, whatever. Let's go check it out." We were in downtown anyways, and I'm like, "Sure, why not?" And we went to Revolver, and I sat on that bench outside. I still remember this. It was in the middle of summer, and I sipped on this coffee black because at the time I had started like developing lactose intolerance, which is why I don't drink milk, I don't drink lattes, I don't like any of those things except
Okay.
ice cream like ice cream's my jam, but I'll suffer through. It's fine.
Right.
But I was drinking it black, and this was again, it was a pour over. It was my first pour over, and it was incredible. Like it was just, I'm like, I've never had a coffee that tasted like this. Why is this not burnt? Why does this taste so good? And even looking at it, it's light. Like it looks like tea, right? Like you're so confused by it, and everything just all at once. I'm like, this is the greatest thing. This is a life changing coffee, and I need more of this. I need more of these coffees. And that was the big one for me.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you?
Revolver's done that for a lot of people that I know. It's because they've been around for so long that a lot of people, before there were so many coffee shops everywhere, Revolver was the place to go to. And I know a lot of people who have kind of been converted by something that one of those guys have done there. And I'm not surprised to hear that story.
Revolver is just a staple in Vancouver, right? It's become so. Anytime anyone's talking about coffee around the world and they're like, oh, we got to go to Vancouver for coffee, Revolver's the number one, right? It's existed for so long, and I don't think it'll ever go anywhere. And quite frankly, the amount of baristas that have come out of it and went into roasting or open up their own shop or whatever, Revolver is that starting point for good coffee in Vancouver. So no one can ever badmouth Revolver, Like it's a great shot.
I agree. Yeah.
Okay, so we are currently in quarantine, right? In self-isolation. You also mentioned working from home for the last year, so you were in self-isolation for much longer. You planned for it. It's fine. How are you seeing an impact, either positively or negatively, but I'm hoping for a positive here. Have you seen any positive impacts from the coffee community during quarantine or self-isolation?
Yeah, that's a nice question, rather than starting on the down, which obviously everybody's aware of, and how awful this is right now. So there's been some really cool things come out of this. Obviously, overwhelmingly, it is shitty for most people, and I don't want to downplay that in any way. My heart goes out to every single coffee shop owner right now, because it's a really, really hard time for them. There is one organization that has kind of sprung up from this. So when this all kicked off, one of the girls over at Nemesis, Sony, and I got chatting about how do we bring everybody together and get people chatting and sharing information and so on. We started this little Slack channel, which was superseded by one that had already been set up by a guy called Dalla over in, I think he's in Victoria, and he is the owner, I believe, or he's certainly one of the owners of a place called Super Baba. And he started Van FBS, which stands for Vancouver Food and Beverage, Van FBC, Vancouver Food and Beverage Community. And this was just a Slack channel to start with, and people wanted to get together, share ideas. It was a lot of stuff about chatting about how the hell do we pay our rent, what can we tap into in terms of what's available from the government, how do we make people redundant and get them EI and do it the right way, and what do we write on the forms. And lawyers started to join this Slack channel and help out. There's a lawyer that works with Nemesis, and he just started doing pro bono advice in there, and an accountant jumped in. And there was some really, really great stuff. But what they did is they did a fundraiser, a drive for donations, so that people in the food and beverage community of the Vancouver area, including Victoria and I guess BC in general, can tap into it in case they need some money. So they can get anywhere up to $150. And this is, I can't pay my bills this month. I really need help. Can you loan me? Oh, sorry, not loan me, but can you give me $50? And that will help me pay for this. And I believe last I checked, they were over $35,000 of donations. And they've given out 10,000 already in donations to people.
That's incredible.
So this is a great example of people understanding how much of a crappy situation this whole thing is, and going, okay, well, how can we better this? How can we bring some cash in and distribute this out to people that really, really need it.
Mm-hmm.
Totally perfect example of the coffee community. And this is actually the coffee and hospitality in general. So Super Baba is a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
This is a great example of how it works and how people want to help each other. And that was inspiring to see, really was.
It's really incredible seeing stuff like that. Like I've seen a few channels being like on Zoom or whatever, being basically saying that walking people through the CERB or walking people through the wage subsidies or what have you, and people helping out, and that, like what you're telling me, like that, I didn't know about that, and I think that's absolutely incredible. It's really tough. I've found this, to not to talk about negatives and then whatever, but like it's really tough when you're isolated, like mentally, when you're just on your own and you're in your own thoughts basically all day, every day, and realizing that you're in a community and you're connected with a lot of people, even if it's just virtually, like you and I are right now. Mm-hmm. It changes your mindset. It changes your dynamic. And it's a great feeling to know that you're not alone and that we're all really, in a sense, suffering together, but also building together. And I think that as a whole has never been really portrayed in the last like 10, 20 years. And right now we're at a pivotal moment where I think, quite frankly, like humanity as a whole is going to adapt for the better because of this. Sure, we're talking coffee because that's what we know. But when it comes down to it, I think there are going to be some that are like selfish. To be fair, there's going to be some people that are selfish about it, but there's also those that are like, okay, what I have to share. Mm-hmm. And that is something that I truly find to be incredible. Like you at one point when this first started off, you're like, my channel is yours to post with what you want. Send me what you need to post. I'll share it. And people don't realize the impact that just a single share has, right? You and I have a decent following, say. And when it comes down to it, like when we have the ability to help someone out, to be like, you know what, I'm going to share your thing. You have like 30 followers, but feel free to do that. It takes zero effort on our end. Mm-hmm. And it might bring in some business for someone else. It might help them out in whatever it is. It also could, at the end of the day, feel like they're not alone, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this in terms of influencers. I'm not saying this in terms of just you and I. And I'm not trying to boast about anything. I'm just thinking I've seen so many people share, like, comment about businesses or people or whatever, and communities that normally wouldn't connect are connecting now. And I just think that in and of itself is really incredible, and that's something that we shouldn't let go when things go back to normal.
Yeah. I think there's going to be some changes to the way that I do my thing on Instagram. So I, like you say, I've been sharing stuff that first few days of everything going down, and when I put my channel open for anyone that wanted to put anything on it, literally anything, that was it was heartbreaking, because most of it was bad news that I was sharing. XYZ shop has closed down, or they're changing service, or they need this or they need that. But I've actually kept up as much as I can a lot of that afterwards, trying to post positive things. So if people are reopening, I try and catch that and repost that. And I think that I'm going to keep doing that. I think that's I need to adjust how I do it, because it can get very, very time consuming, because you're just constantly refreshing and looking for stuff. Maybe do it once a day or something like that. But I think that I will probably do a lot more of that, and open up my channel to anyone that needs it. Because, hey, I mean, I'm not huge. For Vancouver, it's all right. But for Vancouver coffee, it's pretty good. And if I can help, I mean, like you say, it doesn't really cost me anything. It doesn't take that much time. And if it really does make that much impact, then I sort of have a responsibility to do that. Why the hell else have I built this audience and put all this work into it if I can't actually use it for good. So I think I'm going to keep doing that.
Exactly. Like I'm really happy that you again. This is another reason why you and I are good friends. It's that uh, we have a very similar mentality that we're here to build other people up. Like we'll build ourselves up, right? Like I have no problem building myself into what I think I should be or whatever.
Yeah.
But I know that I'm not going to get anywhere without supporting other people as well.
Hmm.
And anytime that I feel like I can help someone out, like there are times where because I also have like my consulting on the side and I have
Yeah.
all that. And I've had people reach out to me and be like, hey, like, I know I'm not your client, but, and the second I hear that, I'm like, just don't worry about it. Like, what is your question? I'll walk you through it.
Yeah.
Because I do find that like accounting right now is one of those fields where people are like, okay, I don't know numbers, but I need to know how to figure out my numbers. Like I need to figure this out, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
And I'm just like, that's not how I work, right? Like my focus is if you need help, I'm gonna help you. Just like you, if someone needs help, you said it best. Like if it's not gonna cost me anything, and I have the ability to do so, then I have a responsibility to do so,
Mm.
right? It's not enough to just be like, yeah, I can, but I'll do it when I'm free. No, you got nothing else to do but help others, right?
But you got to watch out for that, because I always get pulled aside for doing. This is going to sound like I'm blowing smoke up my own arse, really, but I get called out from people who are around me for maybe doing a bit too much, and there has been times where most definitely people have taken advantage of that, and I've learned some lessons that I need to be aware of when that's happening and when that's not happening, because I can probably dig myself into a few holes of doing a bit too much for people. Like I say, I sound awfully arrogant saying that, but
Look,
you
I'll,
gotta be
I'll tell
careful.
you this, like I've definitely been in that same boat, and over the last couple years, I've always I've started to think more and more about like what's the greater good. And sure, there's gonna be people that take advantage.
Hmm.
That's normal in society, right? And unfortunately, it's normal in some friendships. It happens, and it sucks. But if I'm coming at it from a good spot, if I'm coming at it from just genuinely wanting to help someone, I don't really care. Like if you're doing this to take advantage, that's on you, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna take my ability. That doesn't mean that I'm gonna sit there working 40 hours a week to answer your free question. That's not what I'm talking about. But like,
Right.
if there's a way for me to help you and I have the ability to help you, I'll help you, right? If I don't have the ability and it conflicts with other work that I have to do or other things that I really have to do, then I might not be able to help you. But at the end of the day, if you and I or whoever's listening is willing to put in the effort to help someone, do it, right? Even if they're doing it to take advantage, even if they're not, you're still doing something good. It doesn't discredit the work that you're doing. It doesn't discredit what you're doing as a whole, right? So, sure, it sucks. It sucks to be taken advantage of, but at the end of the day, I'm just like I still would never, I wouldn't not help this person just because of that,
Yeah.
right? Like I would always be willing to help the person, and if that's their mentality, that's their mentality. Like it is what it is, right? But I'm not going to change who I am because that person's shitty. Like
That's
that.
interesting. I have a different take on it personally.
Go ahead.
I like everything up to the point where when I feel like I've been burned, it's very, very difficult to get back into my good books. That's just a little personal thing there.
Okay.
I'm not the kind of person that will get screwed over by somebody and then help them again. I'm not nearly emotionally mature enough for that. So good on you. Honestly,
No,
that's
to be
wicked.
fair, like I'm not saying like I'm altruistic or like I'm like the perfect person or anything. That's not like sure. If I get burned bad, I'll be like, you know what? No, this doesn't work.
Mm.
But if I know going in that this person's going to be using me, right? I will do what I can to help to an extent,
Mm.
right? To the extent that I think this is reasonable, and I'm only doing it because of my core value of wanting to help people,
Hmm.
right? It's for me, it's a balance of my core value and basically doing what's right,
Yeah.
or what I believe is what's right. Because if I refuse to help that person, then I'm going against my core value, and I can't go against my core value because that's who I am as a person.
Right.
And if I don't do it, then clearly I'm not the person that I thought I was, right? So I think that's kind of where I'm at, and that's where my conflict hits, right?
Do you think you've got a price tag at some point? Do you think there's a price tag that you'll sell out at?
Oh, 100%. 100%. There's,
Me
there's,
too.
everyone has a price.
Mine's
Everyone has-
low as well. Holy crap.
it's $3. No.
So let me ask you, have you had people send you a message or however they get hold of you and to say, hey, how much to give me a really good review of my coffee? And, rather than you saying, I'll receive your coffee and I'll review it fairly. Have you had people bribe you essentially or try to bribe you? Sorry.
Okay, so I'll answer that and I'll do you one better. Okay. So first, yes, that's happened. And I've done I've made a rule that if you are paying me to be sponsored, because that's normal in the world that we're in,
Yeah.
I'm fine with it. I will take your money, but you do not get final say over my opinion. You don't get final say over anything. But
Yeah.
if I really don't like your coffee, you are taking your money back. I'm not posting your coffee. I'm not reviewing it, because
Good for
I'm
you.
also the kind of person, again, I know that this is the lifeblood of some people, right? And sometimes they pump out really bad coffee, but I'm not about to rip them apart online, and my 11,000 followers or whatever, or the 3 people that are going to read my review, I don't want them to basically see that and be like, okay, I'm never going to go to this place, and I'm going to tell everyone else not to go to this place,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I don't think that's fair. So at the end of the day, with that, I'll just be like, nope, not going to do the review.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of selling myself, and I'm glad I didn't do this, but when I was early on, maybe 6 months to a year into Alfred drinking coffee, someone wanted to buy the rights to Alfred drinking coffee.
Huh.
They're like, we will make coffee under your name,
Okay.
and we will basically, all we want the rights to your name, and we'll pay you royalties for all the sales that we make.
Huh.
And
Okay.
I'm just like, and this was before my roast with JJ Bean. This was before any major whatever.
Right.
This was really early on, right? And I was at the time, I was flabbergasted. I'm like, okay, sure, I'll definitely think about this or whatever. And then I started looking into the company a little bit more. I don't want to name the company right now just because.
Tell me after.
Huh?
Tell me after.
Oh, 100%, I'll tell you that. No.
Don't worry. I'll post it on my Instagram.
I'll write a whole blog post about it. You can read it there. No, but the company actually doesn't exist anymore, so it's beneficial.
Okay.
But I took a week and I was reviewing the information, and I reviewed their company mottos and their core values or whatever. And I also started talking to people that knew the owners and knew the company. And everything that I read, everything that I heard was they will rip you apart and leave you with nothing. And I'm just like, okay. So I'm just like, no. And they're just like, why not? What's wrong? And I'm like, you know what? I just want to. And at the time, again, I wasn't cutthroat like I am now. I was just like, you know what? I want to build this into something myself, and I want to see how this goes or whatever, which is true. But I don't want to be like, you guys sound like garbage, and I don't want to deal with you.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was one thing on my end that I had to evaluate myself and my beliefs and my values there, right?
Are you allowed to tell us how much they offered you?
They offered me $5,000, which
Not bad.
is not bad.
Yeah.
Given that I had 1,000 followers at the time and no
Yeah.
say in anything. Looking back now, I probably would have taken that $5,000 because I've spent way too much on coffee.
Your brand right now is worth way more than $5,000. Right?
Maybe I don't know.
If you can find someone to buy it, that's the thing.
Which
It's only
who's gonna
worth-
buy my brand? It's literally it's nothing. It's a nothing brand. But no, I'm kidding. It's an amazing brand. Stick to listening to Alfred Coffee. Stick to watching my posts, whatever.
Go buy his t-shirts.
Which new merch, whatever, it's fine. But yeah, it was just it's interesting that people think they can buy your creativity as well, and they think that they can just piggyback off of your growth. Hopefully that's never happened to you, or like it's never been a huge struggle for you. I know that you've struggled with some roasters and some people being like,
Burn
why?
some bridges.
Yeah,
There are people who won't talk to me, and for various different reasons. I don't hold punches back. That's my thing, right? I'm very authentic, and I give coffee shops numerous tries before I say anything bad about them. But if they're consistently bad, I'm not ashamed of talking about that, and that has rubbed some people the wrong way. So yeah, definitely I've had some struggles with some people. I don't care ultimately. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you mean.
It's tough, right? It's a balance, and honestly, good on you for not caring, right? I have a thing where I'm just like, I want people to be happy. Even if I have to suffer a little bit, it's fine. But I applaud you for that, right? And we've had these conversations before. Like we've talked about certain shops that you're like, you know what, I gave them 3 tries, and that's usually what you do. If they miss the mark on the first try, you'll give them up to like 3 tries, and if they miss the mark every time,
minimum 3 tries.
Yeah.
I've done 6 or 7 for some shops. It's expensive.
Which is nuts. At that point, I'm like, no, like you're clearly not going to prove yourself at this point.
Well, the 6 or 7 one, they kept doing things right and then doing things really, really badly, and then doing things a little bit better and then bad, and then it was just like the overall trend. You know what was interesting is that 6 or 7 one, I never ended up reviewing them in the end because I was like, I don't know, I can't do this. This is not consistent enough. I can't work out what to do here.
It's 50-50.
No one reads the 5 out of 10 reviews anyway. Everybody wants the ones in the 10s. They want the bad ones and the really, really good ones. Yeah. And I haven't written a bad review in ages. I think because they're all so good these days. All the coffee shops that keep opening are amazing.
It's because they're scared of you and they don't want to win.
If I have at any point made a coffee shop owner or future owner think, well, I need to really do this right rather than half-assing it because I don't want to get a shitty review from that guy, then awesome. Because really, people should be holding themselves to a really high standard. We don't need any more shitty coffee shops. Yeah. What we need is great shops that grow the community and, choose great coffee and go to reputable sources to find their ingredients and whatnot, and have great toilets. So, hey, if I've got a part to play in that, I don't think I do, but if at one point someone has thought of that when they're building their coffee shop, then awesome. And by the way, if they're listening to this, reach out and tell me. I would love to know that. And for anyone that's thinking about opening a coffee shop, then I'm happy to chat to them about that kind of thing. I'm sure you are as well, right?
100%.
We've got a ton of like anecdotal experience and absolutely no experience running coffee shops. So we're the best possible people to talk to.
We just have a lot of experience being in coffee shops without doing any of the work. It's great.
We are like the model for what a consumer in a coffee shop wants.
Yes.
Which is actually really, really ussul. But I couldn't tell you how.
Maybe we should start like a coffee consulting business, me and you just...
No, so I'll tell you why, because it's a pain in the ass.
It is.
No, I tell you why is because there's actually a really good one that's just opened, and I'm going to name drop if I can.
Go for it.
It is called Cafe Club. I'm going to just look it up on Instagram so I get this right. But I'm pretty sure it's Cafe Club Consulting. And it's Philip from Our Town, or Our Town, however you say it. He started his own consultancy company. Let me just check this. Cafeclub.consulting is the Instagram handle. Philip's like the most lovely guy you'll ever friggin' meet. He is such an incredible coffee human being. He's also, he's been managing Our Town. They're closed at the moment, but he's been managing them for ages. I believe he's now on this full time. I would have to double check that. And he will do pretty much any form of consulting that is required. So, setting up machinery, dialing in coffees, setting up payroll processes, how to run a kitchen, all that kind of stuff. He is way better than we will ever be at that kind of thing.
100%.
That is why
100%.
we should not be it. And besides, all that's going to happen is you and I would start this consultancy company.
Yeah.
All we do is chat about everything other than coffee.
Oh,
and just be
100%.
totally distracted. Go out for really expensive lunches every day.
But
and
it's
make
all
no
billable.
money.
Like,
Right. Yeah. We lost $400,000 this year. Like, what do we spend it on?
it's just coffee. It's
Croissants?
like $3 to $5 coffees and maybe a croissant here and there. Like that's,
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
we spoil ourselves with a scone, Like that's.
Right. But big shout out to Philip then and his company. I think that's going to be really, really successful.
I wish him all the best, man. That'll be unreal. But yeah, okay. Is there anything else you felt like talking about?
Not much at the moment. Go out and buy Sipley credit. As obviously, you're going to miss an opportunity to name drop that.
You have to.
GetSipley.com. No, the reality of it is, I guess right now is the coffee industry is in a tough way. We're going to see out of this COVID crisis, not to end on a bad note, out of this COVID crisis, we're going to see some shops close for good. We're going to see some shops never come back. I already know of a few that are in the pipeline / happening that I can't mention names.
Of course.
But it's a real shame that that's going to happen. Whatever anyone can do to help the coffee industry right now is appreciated from me. I'm sure you. I can speak to pretty much every coffee shop owner. So right now, most coffee shops will have gift cards that you can buy. And the idea of that is buy now and spend it later. So give the coffee shops some money right now just to kind of see themselves through this outage. When they do start to open their doors again, if you are comfortable with it and if that is your thing, then feel free to head out to them. I'm personally quarantining as much as I can. I'm staying indoors. I'm not actively encouraging people to go out to coffee shops. That being said, I had to drop by Prado on Commercial Drive the other day to drop off some Sipley stuff. Little name drop there for people who are using Sipley. There is a surprise coming soon. So I dropped some stuff off at Prado, and the way that they've got that set up, one person is allowed in the shop at one time. There's like a pathway that you can only go around. There's around the center of the shop. There's plastic screens everywhere. Everything is.
We just lost connection for a second.
Brilliant.
Network connectivity issues, Okay, we're back. We're good.
Okay. Oh, actually, it's.
Oh, jeez. It just.
My internet connection is unstable. Come on, damn it, tell us. So anyway, just kind of, I guess, if you're going to go to coffee shops, know that a lot of them are making insane efforts to make it safe. So that's one way you can support coffee shops. Another one is go on their web stores and buy beans. Like, for example, Palette right now, they're still roasting Hell for Leather. Prototype are roasting, so a C Market, so is Lunar. God, if I miss people here, I'm really, really sorry. I'm not snubbing anyone. My point is that go and buy as much coffee from your favorite roaster or your favorite coffee shop as you possibly can. It really helps them right now. For example, a roaster, if they can up their roasting amount, let's say here's another name drop, is Agro. So let's say they can get their roasting levels up to a certain level. Well, now all of a sudden they need to hire somebody again to take on that load. So now we've got an out of work roaster that's brought back into the workplace. They're sitting at home right now, maybe on EI, maybe not able to work because of what's going on. So if we can find ways to bring those people in safely into working again, it's just going to keep the coffee scene going, a little bit longer and a little bit stronger. And that's really all I can ask of people. I can't tell you to hug a barista right now because we're not allowed to hug anyone. The Nemesis people, my God, they must be dying right now with this. I know. It's like, that's part of getting a latte there is you're going to hug somebody.
Yeah.
So this must be killing them. So anything you can do to support those guys, any money you can throw their way is going to help the coffee scene. Don't worry about don't worry about people like myself who who are a coffee blogger. You don't need to I get a lot of people asking how to support me. Don't do that. Go give the money to coffee shops right now. That's all I can really ask of people.
I honestly, I couldn't say it any better. You hit the nail on the head. Any way that we can support, and again, I'll just add a little thing is that if you can't afford it, say you're stuck, your finances are tight, share their post so that someone that can't afford it can help them out, right? So keep the community building, keep sharing. If you can buy a gift card or support them in whatever way, do it, right? Just find ways to support people. But I think at the end of the day, that's all we can ask for during this crisis, right? And hopefully a little bit of that positivity starts rebounding and it works out.
Definitely. A perfect way of putting it. That little Instagram share or that little like or comment or something like that. Some people are obsessive over their Instagram. I used to be. I'm not anymore. But that little reach out can mean a lot to people. There's a lot of people in dark places right now, and if you feel that you can make that dark place a little bit brighter for someone, then don't hesitate. Do it. Just do it.
Love it. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for being on the show.
Honored.
Podcast,
Absolutely
whatever
honored.
you want to call it. I'm acting like this is some massive show. It's not.
No, but I get in on episode. Is this episode 3? I think.
It'll be 3.
You did Grady.
Yeah. It'll be 3.
Alexander, I'm 3. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is episode 3. When you're at episode 1000 and you're starting with, this is brought to you by Squarespace for an amazing website,
or brought to you by Simply.
Oh yeah, you know what? Once I get to that level, we need to chat because I like this. You keep this up, mate, and it could very well be quite popular.
Well, we'll see how it goes. Either way, I'm just here to entertain the coffee community,
Yeah.
But yeah, Tom, always a pleasure. It was great chatting, and we obviously have to do this in person when all this is over.
Oh God, yeah, I can't wait. Yeah.
Possibly get a beer instead of a coffee. So
I'm well up for a beer. You know me. House of Funk.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. Coffee and beer.
Yep. Gold.
Perfect. Well, anyways, this was Alfred drinking coffee with friends, and stay tuned for the next episode.